Let's do a couple of little bits and pieces before we do it. Anne Salmond, who we featured last week, who last week told me she wasn't going to come on because she didn't want to basically get any more shit than she was getting from what David Seymour had done, put out a post over the weekend. I'm going to move my mic because I've got bad eyes and I need to be closer. It says this. Dear friends, as one of the scholars targeted in David Seymour's Victim of the Day campaign and described as deranged on his Facebook page for commenting on his regulatory standards bill from our different disciplinary perspectives, it's been heartening to see so few New Zealanders support this kind of personal intimidation aimed at individual citizens by a deputy prime minister. Worse, each of these posts carry the parliamentary insignia. It seems that they were designed and sent out by parliamentary services staff employed and paid for by taxpayers. This means it's not just the integrity of the Deputy Prime Minister and the Prime Minister that is at stake, but all of Parliament itself. I think it's missing a word there. It is acceptable for parliamentary staff paid by, if it's acceptable for parliamentary staff paid by taxpayers to target individual citizens for expressing their view about a bill that's currently before a select committee, then our democracy is in deep trouble. I thought that a flood of official complaints to the Cabinet Office from people offended by this campaign would have encouraged the Prime Minister, who's responsible for ensuring that ministers hold, quote, high ethical and professional standards, end quote, to require these posts to be taken down and for the Deputy Prime Minister to withdraw and apologise. No such luck. Many other people have found the Victim of the Day campaign despicable and without our knowledge mounted a petition to the Prime Minister. So far, 12,500 people have signed it. I thank them for their care and support. That's a lot of New Zealanders who care about upholding ethical standards of behaviours from our politicians, irrespective of political affiliations. This is not a party political matter. Under the Cabinet Manual, the Prime Minister has the responsibility for ensuring that ministers behave with decency and professionalism. The Victim of the Day campaign does not meet those standards. It is a clear abuse of power and taxpayers' money. We tried to stop this kind of abusive behaviour in its tracks and declared it unacceptable. If individual scholars who have the legal protection of academic freedom under the Education and Training Act can be targeted, no citizen is safe from this kind of online intimidation by politicians. I agree with the Action Station petition that it is high time for the Prime Minister to step up and do his job and require David Seymour to behave himself, withdraw and apologise, kind of like his father should have done. Do you? If so, do you add your voice to those of the 12,500 citizens who have spoken up so far? And I would like to add one more comment to that, which we talked about last week. Two comments actually. The first one is David Seymour is a little bitch. That's the first official comment I'd like to add. But the second thing is David Seymour constantly tells us he's about conversation. He wants to have conversation. We want to start a conversation. And then when people who have got a mandate as academics speak out in a way he doesn't like, he forces them out of the conversation by the attacks that he's doing that get picked up by his trolls that cause Anne Salmond, and I know this because me and her had a conversation over email, to say that she was taking a bit of a break. It was all getting on top of her. David Seymour doesn't want conversation. David Seymour wants you to listen to what he's got to say and shut the fuck up. Chewie.
I can add nothing more to that. That was righteous. One thing I noticed that David was speaking on this on one of the shows over the weekend, and the question was put to him as the acting Prime Minister, whether he thought it was appropriate, and he just used that platform to launch into yet another attack on him, just basically saying that Dr. Salmond is a liar. And if she's not a liar, she's never really doesn't understand what she's talking about. Yeah, so he's just doubled down. And that question was fronted with, as the acting Prime Minister, do you think this is appropriate?
Yeah.
So that's very clear what he thinks there.
Yeah. I think we haven't got this on the show notes, but it came up in One News tonight. So let's have a look at the conversation going on right now around the Regulatory Standards Bill.
A condensed scrutiny period for ACT leader David Seymour's controversial regulatory
Condensed, 30 hours.
Standards Bill kicked off at Parliament today amid widespread criticism. The bill proposes every piece of legislation be examined to ensure it doesn't create unnecessary red tape or infringe on the rights of others. Political editor Mikey Sherman has more.
This bill is crazy.
The Regulatory Standards Bill under the microscope.
This is the strangest piece of New Zealand legislation I have ever seen, and it is quite bizarre.
The bill would require new and existing laws to be assessed against a set of regulatory principles, including protecting private property, personal liberties, and recommends compensation in some circumstances.
This is a piece of legislation that will make it much, much harder for politicians to just lazily put...
Mikey does really well here. Because he's basically like, it's not going to do all these things, and she basically gets him to admit it's not going to do anything, so therefore why have it? Why have it? Because it's not going to do all the things that he says.
Oh, well done.
Many people are obviously experts, academics, are disagreeing that it's not going to do anything. They find it to be quite underhanded.
Red tape on New Zealanders. It will make it much, much easier for New Zealanders to challenge bad laws.
The Minister says the bill does not create any new legal avenues to challenge the government.
At best, this bill will be a waste of time and money.
But at worst, critics argue it'll make regulating harmful activities and products more difficult.
What is going on here is an effort to get into the ministerial system in the House and run interference on it.
I support the Regulatory Standards Bill because it puts ideas of efficiency and a careful weighing of the costs and benefits of proposed regulation at the heart of the legislative process.
More than 150,000 submissions were made, some noting there's no requirement for new or existing legislation to take into consideration the Treaty of Waitangi.
This is a relitigation of the Treaty Principles Bill under another korowai, under another cover.
I'll consider it if people will give me a practical example of how considering the principles of a treaty would change the law.
No, that's a cop-out because you've designed this piece of legislation. You determine whether the treaty should have a place in it. Why have you decided it doesn't?
Because I'm still waiting. I mean, you could give me an example right now, right? But you're not going to.
I think the basic point is that it's our founding document.
Okay, but how does that change the practical outcome of the laws that people in New Zealand end up following?
And if it doesn't change it, as you suggest, what's the problem in putting it in there?
Well, first of all, I don't want people to invent a reason to put it on the track.
Submissions on the bill will continue for 3 more days. Mikey Sherman, One News.
There you go, Chewie. So there's a little quick addendum for you as well. So that was a nice,
excellent and devastating.
in other words,
question.
if the Treaty of Waitangi is going to make no difference to this one way or the other, then put it in. Rimmer, not compute. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's did her job.
Sorry, that was. Oh, no, stop moving, chat. Thank you. Look, what does former Prime Minister and clearly acknowledged constitutional expert Geoffrey Palmer even know anyway? Yeah. I noticed that David Seymour hasn't put him on the victim of the week.
Wonder why.
Look, I unfortunately was only able to catch snippets of the oral submissions today. But it was remarkable the caliber of people that were making submissions, making very succinct submissions that this should be rejected. So I think it's an interesting one for Seymour because, like, on one hand, I think we're going through the motions. Like we are clearly noting down all of our objections to this, and he's just going, "Well, I'll consider it if it meets this fucking criteria." And
his
it's
criteria.
like you can't, yeah, his particular criteria. And then if he's going, well, if you disagree with it, you just don't understand it. And that's no defense for anything. If you've created a law that a huge proportion of submitters, by your description, don't understand, you have crafted a particularly shitty bill. If people don't understand what you're trying to accomplish or are misunderstanding it, then that's on you, buddy. But we certainly understood what it was the previous 3 or 4 times you've tried this.
And the point being made, the academic that we just saw there, the gentleman who said last week, well, then critique my ideas. Don't call me deranged. Tell me where I'm wrong. And you'll notice Seymour's not doing that anyway. He didn't do that in the stand-up either. All he did was go, well, you tell me. Well, you tell me. Well, how about you just talk to the actual submissions that were made and explain why they're wrong, rather than just go, deranged. That's the only thing. I think he said the only thing I can think of is some kind of syndrome going around why people don't understand it. It's like, literally, explain.
Some real debate club level fucking sea lining over this. Look, I would, we've discussed this. It will probably go through because of the coalition agreement.
Remember what Duncan Webb told us, that Winston's wily, and he said he would support a bill.
I'm not hanging my hat on anything to do with Winston.
True.
Like, you just can't. But again, we come back to something that we have been banging the drum on for the whole time. The reason that this is here, the reason that this is causing such division, the reason that this has summoned the array of people, and as I said, very high caliber people, to put their views forward that this is a shitty bill and shouldn't go any further. That is on Luxon, who was probably playing Candy Crush on his phone and looking at his watch to find out when he was Prime Minister, rather than actually sitting there going, I have a clear understanding of New Zealand society and the things that New Zealanders see as important. There is no way that I can agree with this. I must kill it before it takes its first breath. He's allowed this to happen. And I don't know where he is at the moment. But I wonder if he knows that he is responsible for this.